This Annunciation is from a Gothic devotional text known as the Hours of Jeanne. It depicts the angel Gabriel's arrival from heaven to announce to the Virgin Mary that she will be the mother of Christ. Commissioned for Queen Jeanne of France, this book of hours was created by the artist Jean Pucelle between 1324 and 1328. Pucelle's work was both the culmination of French Gothic manuscript illumination and the introduction of Italian Renaissance methods into Northern European art. Befitting a royal commission, Pucelle's figures move with a courtly elegance. For example, the angel Gabriel enters through the doorway with graceful fluidity. Gabriel's crossing of this threshold is a skillful visualization of the Annunciation as the moment of Christ's incarnation into the world. The Virgin Mary stands to greet her heavenly visitor. Her figure has a sway that is more beautiful than it is natural. This method of gracefully abstracting the body is called the International Gothic style. While the decorum of Mary's pose was characteristic of late Gothic art, Pucelle's visual method, as evidenced in this Annunciation, was also distinctive in at least two ways. Compared to his French contemporaries, Pucelle's figures are more sculptural in form, and furthermore, they act out narrative drama in pictorially complex space. Pucelle's innovations are more apparent if we compare his Annunciation with the treatment of the same subject by an unknown but contemporary artist. In this beautiful illumination, Gabriel and Mary stand within the frame of a letter R, but the space that they occupy has no pictorial depth. The figures are elegant but flat. When we see that this refined but rather conventional depiction of the Annunciation was painted within a few decades of Pucelle's work, the revolutionary character of his art becomes apparent. Pucelle attempts to depict his figures as three-dimensional and active forms within pictorial space. Although Pucelle's pictorial space is admittedly a bit rudimentary, it was nevertheless very advanced for 14th century French Gothic art. Pucelle's method was in part influenced by the Italian artist Duccio di Buoninsegna. Duccio was the leading artist in the city of Siena at the beginning of the 14th century. Duccio's most famous work was an altarpiece for the Cathedral of Siena known as the Maestà. Completed in 1311, Duccio's altarpiece simultaneously evidences both the glory of the International Gothic style and the dawn of the Italian Renaissance. Pucelle seems to have been particularly influenced by Duccio's panel, The Announcement of the Death of the Virgin. In this extra-biblical narrative, Gabriel has returned to offer the Virgin a palm branch of victory and to inform Mary that her life on earth is near conclusion. If we compare Pucelle and Duccio's work, we can see that Pucelle adapted Duccio's strategy of using architecture as a device for delineating pictorial spaces in which his figures can move. Duccio aspired to create the visual illusion of figures moving in three-dimensional pictorial space. But he didn't have a knowledge of perspective. So in an act of creative cheating, Duccio has cleverly used architecture to fabricate the illusion of box-like spaces. In his Annunciation, Pucelle adopts Duccio's method of using architecture to define space. In fact, Pucelle goes even further. If we look carefully, At what seems to be both the front and the side of the building, we can see Pucelle's willingness to bend architecture. This allows the angel to move through the doorway with greater fluidity. In Gabriel's nimble passage through the doorway, Pucelle makes what he has observed in Duccio's method his own. Jean Pucelle introduced new methods of visualizing pictorial space and narrative action in Northern European art. Pucelle's Annunciation is both a final flourishing of Gothic art and the arrival of the Renaissance.